Most people step into an airport thinking the biggest threat to their trip is a long security line or a delayed flight, but what if the real problem is already sitting in your pocket? Welcome aboard Above and Beyond, where we look at travel through the eyes of someone who spent years watching what really happens behind the scenes. I'm Mila, your host. And after 15 years in the skies as a flight attendant, I've learned that the smoothest journeys aren't just about packing light or arriving early. They're about understanding how security actually works and how small, overlooked details can turn into big problems. Today, we're talking about something that sounds extreme but deserves serious attention: the idea that TSA may check your phone, and the 5 things you should seriously consider deleting or securing before you fly. At first glance, it sounds like something straight out of a spy movie or a sitcom episode where someone accidentally hands over their phone and reveals something embarrassing. We've all sat at the gate scrolling through emails, messages, or games, barely thinking about who might be watching. But the real question isn't whether TSA agents are curious about your vacation photos. The question is whether something on your screen could be misunderstood, misinterpreted, or flagged in a way that slows you down or completely derails your travel plans. Even if you believe you have nothing to hide, misunderstandings don't require bad intentions. They only require the wrong context at the wrong time. Many travelers assume phone checks are illegal or rare, and while random deep dives into personal devices are not routine, there are circumstances where digital content becomes relevant. Security is not about curiosity. It's about risk assessment, regulation compliance, and precaution. When something looks unusual, officials are trained to pause first and ask questions later. That pause alone can cost you time, privacy, and peace of mind. I've seen calm passengers turn anxious simply because they didn't expect digital content to become part of the screening process. That's why this conversation matters. You might be thinking this only applies to people doing something wrong, but that's not how security works. Often, it's harmless content that causes the biggest problems. A joke, a meme, a video taken at the wrong place, or an image saved without much thought can suddenly appear suspicious when viewed through a security lens. The goal here isn't fear, it's awareness. Knowing how easily something can be misunderstood helps you avoid unnecessary scrutiny and keeps your pre-flight calm exactly where it should be. I remember my first real moment of clarity around this issue, and it didn't even involve a passenger. It happened during a layover with a junior flight attendant who had just upgraded her phone. She was excited and scrolling through photos, laughing at a cartoon image of a bomb with a silly fuse that had been shared in her group chat. It was clearly a joke, completely harmless and private. But all I could think was how different that image would look if seen in an airport environment, stripped of context and viewed by someone whose job depends on caution. That moment stuck with me because it showed how quickly innocence can turn into inconvenience. That brings us to the first thing every traveler should consider before flying: images or videos that could be misinterpreted as threats or illegal activity. This includes memes, jokes, dark humor, or casual photos involving weapons, even toy or legal ones. In the security environment of an airport, context disappears. What matters is what appears on the screen. I've seen a passenger pulled aside simply for showing a friend a video from a shooting range. It was legal, ordinary, and harmless, but the presence of a firearm image was enough to trigger further checks. Security agents are not judging humor. They are assessing risk. Before heading to the airport, take a moment to scroll through your camera roll. If something could raise an eyebrow, delete it or move it into a secure, password-protected folder you won't open while traveling. Explaining irony or humor to a serious official is rarely worth the trouble. A little preparation can save a lot of stress, and that's a lesson every experienced traveler eventually learns the easy way or the hard way. And that mindset of preparation leads us naturally into the second thing you should seriously think about before you travel, especially if your journey crosses international borders. This one often surprises people because it feels unrelated to aviation security at first, but it causes more delays than most travelers realize. Illegally downloaded or pirated digital content may seem harmless when it lives quietly on your phone, tablet, or laptop, but it can quickly become a serious issue if customs authorities become involved in your screening process. While TSA's main responsibility is safety, Customs and Border Protection has broader authority, and digital contraband absolutely falls within their scope. I'm not here to preach about copyright laws or tell anyone how to live their life. I've spent enough years in uniform to know people make choices for convenience, especially when preparing for long flights. Downloading movies, shows, music, or software can feel like a small shortcut to make a long journey more comfortable. The problem is that what feels small to you can look very different to an officer whose job is to enforce regulations at the border. When CBP inspects a device, they are not guessing. They are checking for violations, and pirated media counts as one. I once watched a situation unfold that perfectly illustrates this risk. A passenger arrived at customs already irritated from a long flight, convinced that nothing could make the day worse. During inspection, his laptop and external hard drive were flagged. He insisted he had done nothing wrong and became increasingly frustrated as the process dragged on. Later, through a colleague, I learned the reason. His hard drive contained a large collection of pirated movies and shows. He thought personal use made it acceptable. Customs did not see it that way. The result was hours of questioning, fines, missed connections, and the loss of his device. What was meant to provide comfort during travel ended up causing the biggest inconvenience of the entire trip. This is where many travelers underestimate the ripple effect of one small oversight. A delayed inspection can cause you to miss your connecting flight. That missed flight can lead to rebooking fees, lost hotel reservations, and hours spent standing in lines instead of resting. All of this can start with something as simple as a few illegally downloaded files. When you weigh that risk against the convenience, the decision becomes much clearer. Legitimate streaming services and properly purchased content exist for a reason, and they are far less expensive than the consequences of getting flagged at customs. Before you travel, take a few minutes to review the content stored on your devices. If you didn't legally obtain it, remove it. If you're unsure, err on the side of caution. This isn't about morality, it's about avoiding unnecessary complications in an environment where mistakes are rarely forgiven quickly. International travel already comes with enough stress. Adding preventable problems only makes the journey harder. Once your digital entertainment is in order, the conversation shifts to something even more personal, and this one affects every traveler, regardless of destination. The third thing to delete or secure before flying is sensitive personal information that could easily be exploited. Most of us carry more private data on our phones than we realize. Banking apps, saved passwords, tax documents, health records, copies of identification, and deeply personal conversations often sit just a tap away. While security officers aren't interested in your bank balance, situations do arise where devices are handled, misplaced, or subjected to closer inspection. I remember a flight where a passenger left their phone in the seat back pocket during a rushed deplaning. We followed proper lost and found procedures, and the phone was returned safely. But the incident stayed with me. The phone contained unprotected emails, photos of identification documents, and notes filled with login details. If it had ended up in the wrong hands, the damage could have gone far beyond a missed device. It could have turned into identity theft, financial loss, or months of recovery. Before you fly, think of your phone the way you think of your wallet or passport. Protect it accordingly. Encrypt sensitive files, enable strong passwords, and turn on two-factor authentication wherever possible. For documents you don't absolutely need during your trip, remove them entirely. For those you do need, consider storing them securely in a cloud service that requires additional verification. This isn't about distrusting security personnel. It's about protecting yourself from digital exposure in unpredictable situations. Taking these steps doesn't make you paranoid, it makes you prepared. Just like choosing a carry-on that fits overhead, managing your digital life before travel is part of being a smart, experienced traveler, and it sets the stage for the next often overlooked risk that hides inside your photos and videos. That awareness brings us directly to the next issue, one that many travelers overlook because it feels harmless and even convenient. Location data hidden inside your photos and videos can quietly reveal far more than you intend, and this makes it the fourth thing you should consider deleting or securing before you travel. Most smartphones automatically attach location information to images unless you actively turn it off. This process, known as geotagging, records exactly where and sometimes when a photo was taken. On its own, that may seem insignificant, but combined with other information, it can create a detailed map of your movements, habits, and even your absence from home. People love documenting their lives. A quick photo outside your house, a snapshot of your mailbox, a picture of your favorite cafe near work, or a video taken in your living room all feel normal. But if those images include location data and your device is accessed by someone else, intentionally or accidentally, that information becomes exposed. When travel enters the equation, the risk grows. Photos showing where you live paired with messages or posts indicating you're away can unintentionally advertise that your home is empty. This is not about fear. It's about understanding how easily small details connect. I once had a conversation with a kind elderly passenger who proudly showed me photos of her garden. As she scrolled, I noticed an image of her mailbox with her full address clearly visible. A few swipes later, there were photos from inside her home, followed by pictures from the airport showing she was already on a long trip. She hadn't done anything wrong, she simply hadn't considered how those images told a complete story when placed together. That moment stayed with me because it highlighted how oversharing often happens without intention. Before flying, especially if you're traveling alone or leaving home for an extended period, review the photos and videos stored on your phone. Disable geotagging in your camera settings if you don't need it, or at least be selective about what you capture and keep. If you have images that clearly show your address, workplace, or daily routines, move them into a secure, private album or remove them entirely. It's a simple step that significantly reduces risk and protects your privacy beyond the airport. From there, we move into an area that feels more subtle but can create just as much trouble if misunderstood. Excessive personal communications containing sensitive or suspicious keywords can become an issue in specific screening situations. This isn't about everyday monitoring or casual scrolling by security staff. In most cases, personal messages remain private. However, if you are selected for secondary screening or already flagged for another reason, the content of your communications may be reviewed as part of a broader security process. Words matter, especially when they appear without context. Casual jokes, sarcasm, or exaggerated language that feels harmless among friends can sound very different when read by someone trained to identify threats. Terms like bomb, weapon, drugs, smuggle, or threat may appear in conversations as humor, metaphors, or references to news stories. In a security setting, those words can raise red flags even when no harm was intended. I've seen firsthand how this plays out. A young passenger once joked with friends in a group chat about smuggling an oversized chocolate bar through customs. It was lighthearted and clearly not serious. Unfortunately, the word smuggling triggered further questioning during inspection. What followed was an uncomfortable and lengthy delay, while officers ensured there was no actual violation. The passenger missed his connection, not because he did something wrong, but because a joke was taken literally in a serious environment. The solution here isn't deleting your entire message history. That's unrealistic and unnecessary. The key is awareness. Before traveling, especially internationally, consider archiving conversations that contain language that could be misinterpreted. Make sure they're not easily accessible during a casual scroll. If questioned, stay calm and explain clearly. Most misunderstandings resolve faster when travelers remain composed and cooperative. All of these steps share the same purpose. They reduce the chance of confusion, misinterpretation, and unnecessary scrutiny. Security systems are designed to detect potential risk, not intent. When you understand that difference, you can move through airports more confidently and with fewer surprises. And with that understanding in place, everything we've discussed leads directly to the final and most important takeaway about traveling smart in a digital world. And that final takeaway is where everything comes together, because none of these points exist in isolation. They all reflect the same reality of modern travel. Your phone is no longer just a personal device, it's a digital extension of your identity. Airports are controlled environments where context disappears and caution dominates every decision. When something looks unclear, officials are trained to pause first and resolve questions later. Understanding this helps you move through security, not with fear, but with confidence and foresight. The key mistake many travelers make is assuming that preparation only applies to luggage, documents, and arrival times. In reality, digital preparation matters just as much. Your photos, files, messages, and stored data can all become part of your travel experience if circumstances align in the wrong way. That doesn't mean every passenger will face phone checks or deep inspections, but it does mean that being unprepared increases the chance of stress when you least want it. Smooth travel isn't luck, it's planning. What's important to remember is that none of these suggestions require extreme behavior. This isn't about deleting your personality, censoring your life, or living in constant worry. It's about reducing friction. When security personnel see something that fits neatly within expectations, you pass through quickly. When something stands out, even innocently, the process slows. A few minutes spent reviewing your device before travel can save hours later. My 15 years in the air have shown me that the most experienced travelers are rarely the most anxious ones. They are calm because they anticipate problems before they arise. They know what questions might be asked and what could raise confusion. They don't rely on assumptions, they rely on preparation. That mindset applies just as much to your phone as it does to your passport or boarding pass. Ultimately, the goal is not to avoid security, but to cooperate with it smoothly. Security systems are not designed to punish, but they are designed to investigate uncertainty. When you remove unnecessary uncertainty, you make everyone's job easier, including your own. Your journey becomes quieter, faster, and far less stressful. As travel continues to evolve, digital awareness will only become more important. Phones will hold more data, more access, and more insight into our lives than ever before. Learning how to manage that responsibly is now part of being a smart traveler. When you understand the environment you're moving through and take small proactive steps, you protect your time, your privacy, and your peace of mind. That's what truly makes a journey feel first class, not the seat or the service, but the confidence that nothing unexpected will stand in your way as you move from departure to destination. That sense of confidence is what separates stressful trips from smooth ones, and it's also what turns these precautions into habits rather than last-minute reactions. Once you start thinking this way, you realize that managing your digital life before travel is no different from checking the weather or confirming your gate. It becomes routine. You stop seeing it as extra work and start seeing it as part of travel hygiene, something you do automatically because you know the environment you're entering. One of the most important shifts is understanding that airports operate on patterns. Security systems are built to notice what doesn't fit. When your device contains content that aligns with normal expectations, you move through unnoticed. When something feels out of place, even if it's harmless, attention follows. That attention isn't personal, it's procedural. The problem is that procedures take time, and time is the one thing travelers never have enough of. I've watched countless passengers grow frustrated because they believed logic alone would carry them through a situation. They assumed that once they explained themselves, everything would immediately resolve. Sometimes it does, often it doesn't. Explanations still require verification, and verification requires waiting. This is why prevention matters more than persuasion. It's always easier to avoid a situation than to talk your way out of one under pressure. Another overlooked benefit of digital preparation is peace of mind. When you know your device contains nothing that could cause confusion, you travel differently. You're more relaxed at the gate. You're less reactive during screening. That calm energy actually helps interactions go more smoothly because tension is contagious. Security officers deal with stress all day. Calm, prepared travelers stand out in the best possible way. This mindset also protects you beyond the airport. Phones get lost, stolen, or damaged more often than people like to admit. When sensitive data is minimized and secured, the impact of those incidents drops dramatically. Instead of panic, there's inconvenience. Instead of long recovery processes, there's a simple replacement. That difference is huge, especially when you're far from home. None of this requires perfection. It requires intention. You don't need to scrub your phone spotless or live cautiously year-round. You just need to recognize that travel is a unique context where normal assumptions don't apply. Humor changes meaning, privacy narrows, patience is tested. Preparing for that context is a sign of experience, not fear. When travelers adopt this approach, they stop seeing security as an obstacle and start seeing it as a system they know how to move through efficiently. That understanding doesn't just make one trip better. It compounds over time, turning travel into something smoother, more predictable, and far less draining, no matter how often you fly or how far you go. This final message emphasizes how awareness and preparation transform travel from a stressful experience into a confident, controlled journey. When travelers understand how airport security environments operate, they stop reacting emotionally and start moving with purpose. The core idea is simple but powerful. Reducing uncertainty makes travel smoother. A clean, secure, and intentional digital footprint lowers the chances of delays, misunderstandings, and uncomfortable interactions, even though it can never guarantee perfection. The focus is not on surrendering privacy or accepting intrusion, but on protecting oneself within systems that already exist. While travelers cannot control policies or procedures, they can control what they carry, both physically and digitally. That sense of control brings calm, clarity, and confidence. The most relaxed travelers are not careless optimists, but prepared individuals who know they are ready if something unexpected happens. The message encourages travelers to treat their phones as essential travel gear, just like passports or boarding passes. By securing important data and removing unnecessary risks, travelers protect their time and peace of mind. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate all risk, but to remove avoidable ones, allowing travel to feel like a smooth transition rather than a stressful trial.